Hey guys, today we're peeling back a disturbing piece of Roman history, one they've kept in the dark for centuries. We all remember the fights, the sand, the blood, but no one ever asks what happened after. Where did the fallen go? And what was done with them? One man found out, and his story was buried along with the truth. If you're ready for something they won't teach you in school, drop a like, subscribe, and tell me where in the world you're watching from.
Rome had fallen into one of its darker moods. The sky above the Colosseum was smeared in soot and ash, as if the gods themselves had tired of watching men kill one another. The scent of iron and dust clung to every corner of the arena, and beneath the wooden planks and marble pillars, rats made their homes in the forgotten passageways where screams once echoed louder than cheers. A bell tolled in the distance, slow, deep, and final. The games had ended, and the cart came. A large wooden cart with rotted wheels creaked across the bloodied sand of the arena. Drawn by two gaunt horses with hollow eyes, it moved as if cursed. One of the beasts limped from an old wound, each step a protest. The cart's driver, a hunched man in a brown hooded robe, flicked the reins with little energy. His face remained hidden in shadow, but the odor that followed the cart made children cry, and elders cross themselves. Dead gladiators lay inside the cart, their once muscle bodies slumped like broken dolls, arms twisted, heads swaying with the movement. Each man had once been a titan in the ring, gods for a moment, cheered by thousands. Now they were meat. Following the cart was a figure most avoided, Cleon, the Mortician's apprentice. Barefoot, skinny, with skin the color of burnt olive oil and hair unkempt from weeks of no combing, Cleon had been sold into service years ago. He had no parents he remembered, no memories of a childhood before Rome, only the stench of formaldehyde and the cold embrace of death. Yet today felt different. Usually after the games, Cleon's master, old Malleus, would command him to drag the bodies to the mass grave behind the arena or into the pit fires for disposal. But today Malleus simply said, "Follow the cart. No questions. Just observe, and never speak of what you see." His voice, always firm, had trembled as he handed Cleon a small oil lamp and shoved him out of the mortuary's shadowed alcove. The air outside felt heavier, as if death was not satisfied yet. Cleon followed the cart down narrow alleys that twisted like intestines, past statues of forgotten gods smeared with pigeon filth, through tunnels echoing with the cries of unseen animals, and finally into the countryside, where the hills rolled like the backs of sleeping giants. The road climbed toward the estate of Domitius Pallidus, one of the richest senators of Rome. A man rarely seen, but often whispered about. It was said he bathed in mare's milk and burned lavender incense to purify the air around him. Some claimed he never aged. The cart did not stop at the villa's main entrance. Instead, it turned down a hidden gravel path flanked by dying cypress trees. At the end of this path lay a stone door, half covered in moss and carved with a symbol Cleon did not recognize, a serpent devouring its own tail. The driver stepped down and tapped on the stone 3 times. A deep groan came from within, and the door opened inward, not into a cellar, but into darkness, deeper than any night Cleon had ever known. The driver motioned silently for Cleon to enter. He hesitated. He was trained to clean and stitch wounds, to remove entrails with precision. He was not trained to enter crypts. But the cart creaked again, and something inside Cleon moved him forward. Inside, oil lamps lined the walls, each flickering with a greenish flame. The hallway was long and cool, the air thick with incense and something else, an acidic smell that curled in the nose. Every few steps, Cleon passed statues of gods with faces smoothed by time, their eyes hollow, watching. At the end of the hall, voices whispered behind a velvet curtain. The driver pushed it aside. Cleon stepped through. What he saw would change the rhythm of his heart forever. The chamber beyond was massive, its ceiling domed like a temple, its walls carved with ancient languages, older than Latin or Greek. Gold and bone adorned every corner, skulls mounted beside bronze goblets, femurs turned into flutes, jawbones hanging from chains like decorations. And in the center, a table. Long, carved from obsidian, covered in silk cloth dyed blood red. Around it sat 12 nobles, all dressed in immaculate white robes. They wore masks shaped like animal skulls, wolf, jackal, raven, lion. They did not speak, but their eyes watched the servants place the gladiators' corpses on stone slabs nearby. Cleon recognized one of the dead, Tyro the Red, a crowd favorite. He had killed 4 men today before being speared from behind. His eyes were still open. Domitius Pallidus stood at the head of the table, face uncovered. His features were sharp and ageless, his hair white as salt. His eyes gleamed like marble wet from a storm. He raised a golden chalice and spoke. "We gather under the old rite, to partake, to transcend the rod of time." He motioned toward the corpses. A man stepped forward, a butcher priest perhaps. He held a dagger forged of obsidian and chanted in a tongue that rasped like dry leaves. With surgical grace, he carved into Tyro's chest, removing the heart and placing it upon a heated bronze plate. The scent of burning flesh filled the room, yet none winced. Cleon wanted to look away, but he couldn't. One by one, the nobles approached the table, dipped their fingers into the heart's juices, and tasted. Some chewed strips of flesh offered like delicacies. One woman laughed softly, her teeth stained red. "We do not feast on the weak," Domitius said. "Only the strong, the fallen gods. Their power lives on in our veins." Cleon's stomach churned. He stumbled backward, knocking over a lamp. The flame sputtered but didn't die. All eyes turned toward him. Domitius stared. "The boy sees," he said. "A rare thing for the dead to witness the feast of the living." The driver stepped forward, bowing his head. "He was sent by Malleus," he said, "to learn." A silence hung in the chamber. Domitius approached Cleon, towering, ageless, his robe spotless. "Then let him learn fully," he whispered. "Let him understand what Rome truly is." He placed a hand on Cleon's chest. And for a moment Cleon felt it, something slither under his skin, something ancient. The pulse of power, hunger, memory. He staggered. Darkness swam around the edge of his vision. "Take him to the catacombs," Domitius said to the driver. "He will serve the next feast." As Cleon was dragged away through a side tunnel, lit only by flickering torches, he began to tremble. He had seen war, disease, death. But this was something older than Rome. This was ritual. And deep in his soul, something whispered, "You were meant to be here. To clean, to witness, perhaps to serve, or to escape and expose what feasts in shadows of Rome." The stone walls of the passage closed in tighter as Cleon was led deeper beneath the earth. Every breath he took was filled with dampness and decay. The torch carried by the hooded driver flickered weakly, casting long shadows that danced like spirits against the walls. The silence was thick, broken only by the echo of their footsteps and Cleon's ragged breathing. His arms trembled. Not from cold, but from what he had witnessed, the macabre feast, the silent nobles, the desecration of flesh. He had seen men die in the arena, watched them bleed into the sand. But that was something else. That was not death. That was worship. The corridor opened into a descending spiral staircase carved directly into the stone. The steps were worn from centuries of use, and strange runes had been etched into each one, unfamiliar symbols that seemed to shimmer faintly as Cleon passed. Some glowed softly as if alive, others pulsed, like a heartbeat under stone. "Where are we going?" Cleon asked, voice barely more than a whisper. The hooded man said nothing. Down they went, further, deeper, until the air grew heavy with whispers that had no source. Finally, they reached the bottom. A vast chamber unfolded before them. The torchlight revealed rows and rows of sarcophagi, some opened, others sealed. The ceiling above arched like a cathedral, but there were no prayers here. Only the silence of secrets buried alive. At the center of the chamber stood a black altar. Unlike the one in the feast room, this one was rough and primitive, surrounded by piles of bones that crunched underfoot. Symbols marked the stone floor in concentric circles, drawn in blood both fresh and ancient. The driver turned and handed Cleon a dagger. "You are now a child of the rite," he said. "Cleanse, cut, prepare." Cleon looked down at the blade, obsidian like the priest's dagger, smooth, sharp, and unnaturally cold. The weight of it in his hand was real, too real. "I'm not one of you," he whispered. "I'm not a butcher." The driver chuckled. It was the first sound he had made that wasn't footsteps or breath. "You think we were born to this? We all served, all bled. Now you do too." Before Cleon could protest, the man pointed to a nearby slab. A new body lay upon it, not a gladiator. A slave girl, young, still warm. Her wrists bore fresh cuts, and her eyes, wide open, seemed to stare at Cleon, accusing. "They feed on warriors," the man explained. But the rites begin with innocence. Cleon dropped the blade. I won't. The man's eyes darkened. He picked up the dagger and leaned close. Refuse the rite, and you will not be killed. No, boy. You'll be buried alive. And your soul will be devoured until nothing remains. Not even your name. Cleon backed away, shaking. His thoughts raced. There had to be a way out. A weakness. Something. Where is Malleus? He asked suddenly. He sent me. He must know something. The man sneered. Malleus was one of us. Long ago. He left the feast, but you never leave for free. Cleon's heart skipped. Malleus's master? The old mortician with dead eyes and trembling hands? He warned me, Cleon murmured. Told me to watch. Not to speak. Then he chose well, the man said. You are here now, and the rite begins tonight. The hours crawled like worms. Cleon was kept in a stone cell, lit only by the dim glow of a single green flame. No bed, no blanket, only the cold floor, and the distant drip of water from a broken pipe. The walls were covered with carvings, ancient stories etched in feverish strokes. He saw men eating hearts, women bathing in blood, and a serpent with many heads, each one consuming a different part of a human body. He tried not to sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard whispers, unreal words spoken in the voice of Domitius Pallidus. We do not die. We consume death. He paced. He counted the runes. He whispered his own name to himself so he would not forget it. Cleon. Son of no one. Boy of death. Then footsteps. A key turned in the heavy iron door. It wasn't the driver. It was a girl no older than Cleon, dressed in servant's robes. Her skin was dark, her eyes sharp with fear and cunning. Her curly hair was hidden under a cloth, and she held her finger to her lips. Don't speak, she hissed, if you want to live. Cleon stared. Who are you? A servant. Like you, but I have seen more than they think. She pulled from her robe a small vial of black oil. Rub this under your eyes. It blocks the rites. They won't see you in the next feast. Why help me? Cleon asked. Because I want out too. But I need someone who's seen what I haven't. Cleon hesitated. Then he took the oil. What's your name? She paused, then whispered. Nyssa. Together, they crept through the halls of the catacombs, past sleeping guards, past the statue of the serpent with emeralds for eyes, and into a side chamber lined with scrolls and bones. This is where they keep the records, Nyssa explained. Everything. Names. Dates. What they ate. Who they sacrificed. Cleon picked up a scroll. Malleus, it read. His hands shook. The old man had once presided over the rite, not just served it. But there was more. Malleus had written notes in the margins in Greek, his native tongue. One passage read, The boy must see. He must remember. He is the last vessel. What does that mean? Nyssa asked, peering over his shoulder. Cleon's voice was hoarse. It means, I'm not here by chance. Suddenly, the bell tolled above. Not from the Colosseum. From below. The feast was beginning. And the next sacrifice would not be a corpse dragged from the arena, but a living offering. The bell's toll rolled through the catacombs like thunder muffled in a burial shroud. It did not clang like a temple bell or the clean ring of the Colosseum's victory chime. No, this was deeper, guttural, as if a great iron heart were beating in the underworld. Nyssa and Cleon froze. That's not just a call to gather, she whispered. That's a summoning. The green glow of the catacomb flames flickered. A chill swept through the corridor like a phantom's breath. Every bone on the shelves, every skull on the ledge, seemed to turn toward them. We have to go, Cleon said, voice hushed but urgent. Nyssa hesitated. You don't understand. They don't kill everyone they summon. Some are made part of the eternal circle. They become feasters, but only after passing a test. A test? Cleon asked. She nodded. The trial of flesh. They emerged from the archives chamber, keeping to the shadows as they moved. The low halls were now stirring with movement. Hooded figures lit lanterns made of dried human skin, the flickering oil casting ghostly faces on the walls. Other slaves, some trembling, some glass-eyed, were led silently toward the central feast chamber. We can't be seen, Nyssa said. The oil should keep you hidden. But me. Cleon turned to her. No, we go together. I won't leave you. Nyssa looked at him, truly looked. You're either brave or stupid, Mortician's boy. Both, Cleon said, managing a hollow smile. They ducked into a hidden alcove that led into an upper crawl space above the grand hall. From there, they could peer through the carvings in the stone latticework and see what the nobles below were doing. The feast hall was no longer filled with food. It was filled with people, hooded nobles in crimson robes, standing in a perfect circle around the black altar. Their hands were outstretched, their voices chanting in an ancient tongue that shook the floor. In the center stood a man, chained and naked, a gladiator of enormous size. His eyes were wild with rage and fear. A priest stepped forward, one they hadn't seen before. He was old, skin like paper stretched over bone, and yet he moved with uncanny grace. His robe was embroidered with golden thread in the shape of a many-headed serpent. "Let the trial begin," the priest intoned. The gladiator was unchained, handed a dagger. "If you eat of your own flesh," the priest said, "and survive, you will rise. If you fail, you will feed the children of the right." The man's hands trembled. "Do it," a noblewoman hissed. "Prove your worth." Slowly, the gladiator raised the dagger to his forearm. With gritted teeth and a roar of pain, he cut deep, slicing a strip of flesh and raising it to his mouth. Blood poured down his chest. He bit, chewed, swallowed. The room erupted in whispered ecstasy. Cleon turned away, gagging. Nyssa clutched the edge of a lattice to keep from falling. But didn't end there. The gladiator's body began to change. His eyes rolled back, his muscles spasmed violently, and his mouth foamed. His chest expanded as though something inside was trying to crawl out. Then he collapsed. "Another failure," the priest murmured. Two robed guards dragged the twitching body away, while the nobles turned their attention elsewhere. "That was the third this month," one noble said. "The line weakens. We must replenish the bloodline. Find a child of the old blood." Cleon and Nyssa exchanged a look. "They're searching for someone," Nyssa whispered. "Someone like you?" Cleon's mind was spinning. "I don't know what they mean. I was a boy sold to the mortuary at 7. Nyssa's eyes narrowed. "Or maybe hidden there." Suddenly, a cold hand clamped around Cleon's ankle. He gasped. A masked figure had crept silently into the crawl space behind them. The oil had worn off. They'd been seen. "Intruders," the figure hissed. "Bring them." They were dragged down through the grand hall in front of the altar. The nobles gathered close, their faces hidden by golden veils. Domitius Pallidus stepped forward. "The boy," he said softly. "Ah, the boy. You watched the feast. You defiled our secrecy. And yet you carry the mark." He reached out and touched Cleon's collarbone just above his heart. Suddenly, the mark burned, one Cleon had never noticed before, a faint brand hidden beneath old scars. It glowed now with a dull red light. Gasps echoed through the room. "He's one of the bound blood," whispered a nobleman. "An heir of the vessel." "He must be prepared," said another. "Before the eclipse." "Wait," Cleon shouted. "What do you want from me?" "I'm a Mortician slave, nothing more." "You were never a slave," Domitius said. "You were placed. Protected. The last of the keepers." Cleon stared, dumbstruck. "Malleus." "He knew. He was our enemy," Domitius replied. "A betrayer. But he could not kill you. None of us could. Not until the right." "And the girl?" a noblewoman asked. "She saw too much." Domitius turned to Nyssa. "She may yet serve. Or be sacrificed." "No." Cleon shouted. He lunged, breaking free for an instant, knocking one guard to the floor. He seized Nyssa's hand. Together, they ran through the crowd. The nobles parted like shadows, stunned. No one had dared defy the right in generations. They burst into a tunnel Cleon remembered from the corpse route. Left down the slope, across the bridge of bones, he could still trace the path by memory. "The crypt gate," he gasped. "If we can seal it behind us." They rounded the final corner and stopped dead. A massive figure blocked the exit. Not human. Not anymore. The failed gladiator. His flesh had twisted and healed. His body now pulsed with veins of black fire, his eyes glowing with unnatural rage. He turned. Nyssa breathed. He turned into one of them. The creature opened its mouth and screamed, a sound like bone breaking underwater. Cleon raised the dagger he had hidden in his robe. "We don't run." Nyssa drew her own blade, smaller but gleaming with the same oil as before. "Then we fight." Cleon barely dodged its massive hand. Claws like butcher's knives grazed the stone wall beside his face. The mutated gladiator was faster than anything that size should be, its movements unnatural, as if 1,000 muscles were pulling in different directions. Nyssa shouted, distracting it. She leapt forward and slashed its thigh. The blade hissed as it made contact. The oil seemed to burn into the creature's flesh, making it roar in pain. "It works," she cried. But it wasn't enough. The beast backhanded her with a sickening thud. She hit the ground, gasping for breath. Blood trickled from her mouth. Cleon screamed and lunged. He drove his dagger deep into the creature's side. It bellowed and twisted, knocking him off his feet, but not before he felt something shift beneath its skin. Something ancient. Something waiting. The gladiator stumbled, held one last time, and then collapsed in a pile of steaming, mutated flesh. Silence. Cleon crawled to Nyssa, heart pounding. "Are you all right?" She winced, nodded slowly. "You've got the blood," she muttered. "You're one of them, but not like them." The tunnel behind them was glowing now, crimson torches approaching. The nobles were coming. "We don't have much time," Nyssa said, struggling to her feet. "We can't outrun them." "Then we finish it," Cleon said. She looked at him. "Finish what?" "The rite. If they need me to complete it, then I'm the key to ending it." They returned to the heart of the feast hall, not fleeing, but walking into it, side by side. The nobles fell silent at the sight. Domitius stepped forward, flanked by masked priests and blade-bearers. "You return willingly," he said. "The prodigal blood." "I return to end this madness," Cleon replied. Domitius's face remained calm. "You were never taught the weight of your inheritance. You carry the sole thread of the first feaster, the one who devoured death itself and spat out time. That is what we seek to awaken. Immortality through your blood." "You mean cannibalism dressed in gold," Cleon snapped. "A cult feeding on corpses and false hope." "You would waste the gift," another noble demanded. "You would throw away eternity." "I'd rather die once than live forever in a pit of rot." They began to circle him. "You cannot stop what has already begun," Domitius whispered. "The eclipse comes. The old hunger awakens. Even now, the altar calls for your blood." Nyssa stepped forward, defiant. "Then let it call. But not all blood obeys." She lifted a pouch and threw it to the floor. The oil Malleus had left behind, extracted from sacred herbs and embalmed bile, spilled across the altar stones. She lit it. The flames ignited blue and green, racing up the black altar, consuming the bones and carvings in a violent blaze. The nobles screamed. Domitius lunged toward Cleon, but the boy stood firm. "I am not your vessel," he shouted. As the flames reached the center of the altar, the room shifted. The air grew cold, then unbearably hot. The stone walls shivered as if alive. The roof above cracked, and a shaft of red, eclipse light poured into the chamber. And then they came. Shadows, darker than night, pulled from the walls and floor. Figures from beyond the veil. The original feasters. They were not men. They were not gods. They were hunger made flesh. And they had come to claim their due. Domitius screamed. One by one, the nobles were dragged into the darkness, their golden robes turned to ash, their bones shattering under unseen pressure. The priests tried to chant, but their words melted in their mouths. Cleon and Nyssa ran, the very ground cracking beneath them. They emerged from a collapsing catacombs just as the first rays of sunlight broke past the eclipse. The sky was red. Ash rained from above like snow. Behind them, the feast hall caved in, burying centuries of horror beneath stone and flame. Cleon collapsed to his knees. "It's done," he whispered. "It's over." Nyssa looked back one last time. "Not over," she said, "but broken. The blood is still inside you. They'll come again." He met her gaze. "Then I'll be ready." She smiled faintly. Mortician's boy no longer. Epilogue. Years passed. Rome's appetite for blood never faded, but the name Cleon vanished from the scrolls. Some said he died in the fire. Others whispered of a man in distant lands who could speak to the dead and keep them still. But deep beneath the earth, in sealed vault none dared enter, a single whisper remained. The bound blood still flows. And far away, at the edge of empire, a noble child was born with a strange mark glowing beneath his skin. The Feast of Shadows had not ended. It had only begun again.